Hello everybody, this is Bea Harper from Supermaster.com and welcome back to another review. Today I will be looking at Guillermo del Toro's loving sonnet to big effing robots fighting big effing monsters. Pacific Rim, made in 2013, starring Charlie Hunnam, Rinko Kikuchi, I'm really sorry about butchering that name, that's very disrespectful of me, Idris Elba, Burn Gorman, Charlie Day, and Ron Perlman. Right, so needless to say, I was chomping at the bit to see this movie. I was frothing at the mouth, I was tearing up the carpet, I was just like crawling up the walls, and yeah, it was a really bad sight. It really was. So on that glorious day, when I finally got my ticket, when I got my bag of salt and vinegar chips and Coke, I sat down the theatre and I was on cloud nine. At least for the duration of the movie. Now I know what you must be thinking when I say that, and let me just say this right now. I do not hate this movie at all, and I love everything about it in terms of just... Here's the thing, Pacific Rim is a spectacle. This is the sort of movie that you need to see on the big screen. On anything else, it just loses its impact. So for me, there are two types of Del Toro movies, in my opinion. Ones I love, and ones I like. And for me, Pacific Rim is one of those movies that I like. And there's still plenty really great things about it. So before I launch into my negatives, or rather less impactful type of points, let me just give you a rundown about what I really do like about this movie. And I say this completely unironically. Alright, so first and foremost, this movie knows what it is. It knows what it is, it knows its audience, and it knows what it has to do to make sure that money is well spent. And boy oh boy does Pacific Rim deliver on that. Guillermo del Toro is a nerd for this sort of stuff, alright? He is just like you and me. He wants to see big monsters, so he gives us big monsters. He wants us to see big robots, he gives us big robots. And, you know, we want to see these things fight, or he gives us fights, man. The fights in this movie, you could never ever do with shaky cam, alright? So we see every single punch, slash, swipe, tail whip, every single hit just like impacting on the other. It's just that the fights in this movie are just one of the best things. And once again, this is something that you need to experience on the big screen. Anything else just will not do. And also, I gotta give humongous credit to Rinko Kikuchi as Meiko Mori. I'm not just saying this as a woman, but I have really grown sick of having women play the automatic love interest in sci-fi slash horror fiction slash action type of movies. Not every film does that, please don't say, or rather please don't think I am, but more often than not there's always that narrative crutch that they fall back on. But thankfully, Meiko doesn't go off with anybody. Meiko does what she has to do. She has a very personal stake in what's going on, but she also has a duty that she would like to fulfill to the rest of humanity. She is a soldier. She is somebody who wants to do right, and most importantly, she is her own individual. Her relationship with Idris Elba's character Stacker Pentecost, who actually sounds like a porn star's name when you think about it. Stacker Pentecost. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's very special, but it's parental, alright? There is no creepy romance going on here, like, because she's a younger woman and he's like an older man, but it doesn't have anything like that. And same thing can be said for her connection with Charlie Hunnam's character. Hunnam's character does display some sort of interest towards her, but this film does not show any sort of love scene between them, no kiss, nothing. The most they do is, like, you know, nuzzle heads or give each other a hug. I mean, that is what it comes down to in this movie. And I could not be more thankful that finally we get ourselves a female lead who also doesn't have to be a romantic partner. Thank you, Pacific Rim. Thank you. All right. Now, even though Kikuchi is really good in this movie, we still got ourselves a pretty solid cast, except for Charlie Hunnam, and I'll get to him a little bit later. So, of course, Idris Elba plays your typical sort of stoic military general, but Elba is a very charismatic actor, and he is able to inject his typical charm and likability into practically any sort of role he takes on, and Sturker Pentecost is no exception. And then you have Charlie Day and Burn Gorman playing brothers. One is American, one is British. I don't know what happened here, but then again, this is a movie about gigantic animals, or rather monsters, versus gigantic robots. Whoa! I'm getting my gigantic stuff like flipped around. But yeah, I'm not one to question anything like that. Now, here's the catch with these two. They are made to sort of constantly be at each other's throats, arguing, you know, combating each other's opinions and everything like that. But at the end of the day, of course, they love each other, and of course, they want to help humanity. Now, your mileage may vary as to how much you tolerate them, but their sort of grating, annoying, sort of combative nature, it suits the characters that they're meant to fulfill. So they're basically meant to be the geeky scientists who are trying to help humanity. And you know what, I really did like Charlie Day's character because he prides himself on being an expert on kaiju. Like, he will be able to tell you about, you know, what this thing's biology is, you know, what it does, how it reproduces, everything like that. He has this tattoo of a kaiju on him. He's just like, he's a big frickin' nerd. And but it works in the context of the story. Okay, so we also have Ron Perlman, who plays we shall call him a black market businessman. He's a very unique and eclectic type of character, and it really is no wonder that whenever Del Toro makes a movie, he almost always tries to incorporate Ron Perlman. And understandably so. Ron Perlman can just like disappear into any sort of quirky role you want, and he will just have the biggest ball with it. The man is super talented, and quite frankly, I loved watching him no matter what. So, what else can I tell you? I'm sorry, I have all this written down because the way I see Pacific Rim is that even though I really do like it, I don't love it as much as other people do. And if you are one of those people who love this movie, power to you, in all honesty. So, what else? Oh yes, the Kaiju and Jaeger designs. The Jaegers are the enormous robots, and every one of them are just so beautifully different. You can ID them. You don't find yourself being confused about who is piloting what and what does the Jaeger look like, or in the Kaiju's case, like, they're named after very specific type of features on their bodies. You have one Kaiju known as the Hammerhead because its head resembles a hammer. There is no room for confusion when it comes to just like looking at these types of constructions and IDing them and saying, yes, that is that, that is that, that is that. So you're never lost as to who is doing what at any sort of particular time. Personally, my favourite Jaeger was the one piloted by the Chinese folks. I mean, the Chinese brothers, I should say, like triplets. And but that's another thing about this movie. Even though the humans piloting the mechs is no new thing, it actually makes sense in the context of this movie. You can have the most strongest and overpowered Jaeger you could possibly imagine, but it is nothing without the human soul controlling it. This is a film about saving the human race. So you've got to have these types of elements behind it. So in saying that, the kaiju biology to me is also very, very fascinating because, as per Del Toro, he wants to share his curiosity with how these things work biologically. And there are quite a few sort of gruey and gory bits involving kaiju biology, I won't lie, but it's still very interesting to look at, and just, you can almost feel that you too are becoming knowledgeable in kaiju biology. It's kind of cool. So that being said, alright, so the cons of this fall back onto a couple of different things. First and foremost, Charlie Hunnam's character, Raleigh. Riley's character has suffered a humongous trauma in the past, and most of this film does take place from his point of view. So you would think that bearing all of this in mind, his character would be granted a little more insight. But I didn't feel that. And I'm not sure as to whether or not it was because of the script, which is incredibly straightforward and quite basic, or it's Hunnam's performance. Now, I don't mean to downgrade Charlie Hunnam at all. Quite frankly, I haven't seen a lot of his work, so in all honesty, I can't make an educated opinion. But he doesn't convey that sense of determination and trauma and like the hesitation of stepping back into a Jaeger, but also the fact that he does want to help save the world. It's just, I don't know, it just felt very, very weak when compared with the other actors in this movie, specifically Rinko Kikuchi. Like, you would have had to have some sort of match between them, like an emotional match. Now, I don't mean in a romantic way, but she just seemed far more stronger to me, emotionally and physically. Same thing can also be said about, as I said, the story. The story is very straightforward. It's like great big monsters trying to take over the earth and humans, you know, fighting back in a last stand. That's all it really is. Now, you may have a couple of interesting narrative threads in this movie, namely with Ron Perlman's character, but it's very predictable. Now, generic doesn't mean bad. Please don't feel I'm saying that. But even though this movie is indeed a giant robot versus giant monster, like, I still want to see a little more aspect about the people behind the Jaegers. In all actuality, the other sort of Jaeger pilots aren't exactly given much to work with, but then again, it is probably because of the pacing of this movie. But let me give you an example. You have a bunch of you have Chinese triplets who pilot the Jaeger, and then you have two mysterious Russians who pilot the Russian Jaeger, and then you have two Australians piloting the Australian Jaeger. And look, I'm not going to say I'm offended. In all honesty, I'm not. But when you portray Australian characters on the big screen, they are almost always, "Hey mate, how you going? I'm from Brisbane, how you doing?" You know. The fact of the matter is, like, neither of those actors were Australian. they weren't. And once again, it's really not an irritation for me. If anything, it works in terms of IDing about who is who. That's what that sort of stereotypical type of thing is for. And even though it's not handled with as much sensitivity, it hardly comes off as offensive. So, yeah, that being said, look, and this is going to be a little bit hard for me to say, Pacific Rim to me rates about 3.5 out of 5, and that is because unless you see it on the big screen, it kind of loses its power. Well, when I say kind of, it does lose its power. All of it comes from the fact that this is a popcorn movie. This is a movie that just sit down and just enjoy yourself with, because you're sitting amongst like Dolby surround sound, and you're sitting in front of a great big sort of cinema screen, and that is how it draws you in. If you watch it on your regular type of television, you just don't get that same punch. Well, at least I don't. And it's a bit of a shame, but like I said, I really don't hate this movie, and everything I like about it, I can say without irony or tongue-in-cheek that it is genuine. So, yeah, Pacific Rim, not my favourite, but still pretty good. So thank you very much once again for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.